I'm Bill Sterling, and this is the BoardCast. News, tools, tips, technology, and hot topics in the real estate profession in Newfoundland and Labrador. In this edition of the BoardCast, we present a condensed rebroadcast of our Fireside Chat from our AGM held on April 29. Join panelists President Neil Norcott, President-elect Randall Hobbs, Treasurer Ron Birmingham, CREA Regional Director Kimberly French, and National CREA Chair Cliff Stevenson, as we chat about important issues in real estate. Folks, this is a bit of a departure for us. We're trying to make this much more of an information exchange kind of an event as opposed to us just preaching reports at you. So we're going to do a fireside chat. I've got some questions here around topics that are in our strategic plan. And I'm going to direct each question to one of the panelists and get a response. But any of the panelists, and Cliff, certainly from the national perspective, you can jump in with your insights because each of these questions are just as relevant on the national front as they are here. And so our first question is around the member engagement, member experience pillar of our strategic plan. I'm going to direct this to President Neil. So member engagement and the quality of the member experience has been a top priority now for 5 years. And according to our annual member survey, we're starting to move the needle in the right direction. Over the past year, though, with all of the restrictions that we've experienced, it's getting increasingly difficult to engage with our members face to face. So to President Neil and then anybody else who wants to join in, how do you see us continuing to focus on engagement during the pandemic and afterwards?
Well, thank you, Bill. Tough question.
Well, I didn't want to start with an easy one.
Yeah, well, thanks. But I think the answer, certainly evolves around some of what Cliff delivered this morning. Like, he would love to be here. Why do you want to be here? Because your members are here. The interaction with each other is crucially important. As Bill indicated, for the last 5 years, it's been a strong priority of ours to make sure we engage with our membership. And I think, as Bill said, we have moved the needle in the right direction. But we are an interactive group, and not being able to socialize with each other certainly makes things a lot tougher to do. So, unfortunately, we have to rely on technology. We have to be looking at Zoom and other forms of technology to be able to reach out to each other. But as a group, we also need to focus a little more on how we can do that a little bit better. We have had 3 meetings now in the Zoom platform, but they've all been on a provincial level only. We strongly believe we need to be able to reach out to the regions as we used to in the past. Unfortunately, it can't be in person. It has to be through technology, but we need to focus a little bit more on regional meetings, but potentially bringing in some more specific webinars that are directly related to engagement with members. And hopefully, when we finally all get a couple of shots each and we get a little bit of antibody build up, we can start to get on the road again and truly interact and bring Cliff down and make sure he gets screeched in and make sure we get to Central and Western and engage with the members in these regions, because we are a provincial association and it's terrible that we can't visit every region. Unfortunately, the pandemic is ruling that, but hang in there, folks. We'll focus as best we can with the technology piece, and as soon as we can get back to see you personally, we certainly will.
I'd like to weigh in on that. We need to be available. That's the big thing. We need to be approachable and present and allow everybody to know that we are there and we are there for them. I've said all along that my telephone number is there. My text is there. I'm here. Reach out to me. And I'm not I'm not stepping back from that just because I'm a CREA director right now. I'm hoping you reach out to me or Cliff at any time that you need any kind of information and to make a presentation to the board of directors. But I really do feel that even though in a pandemic, we can still be there for you, even not face to face, but definitely be present, be in the moment, let people know you're here and available. And I'm sure, as we did in the past, we will always be here. Thanks.
Okay. And the next question is for Kimberly, who is the chair of our GR committee. So for many years, our advocacy efforts were really solely focused on the Trading Act and CREA's asks through PACTAs. Now that the Trading Act is mostly done, we've still got some tweaking to do. There's still a couple of things that we've got to try and streamline through that process. So that's done. So what do you see, obviously Crown Lands becomes part of this, but what do you see as being important priorities for advocacy for NLAR moving forward? Where can we put a stake in the ground? Where can we affect some change for our members?
I would definitely say is to continue on with the government and make sure that everything is put in place fairly quickly for our Trading Act, because we spent many, many years trying to put that into place. And it's going to protect us, and we have the Realtor Code actually put into that, the Real Estate Trading Act as well, which protects us provincially. So I would keep on the government to make sure that that gets done and gets done quickly. The area of homelessness. In Newfoundland, you probably don't see it as much as you do elsewhere, but we do have a homeless problem here. And there's a number of different groups in the area that can work with us to put an end to homelessness, to help more affordable housing, and just be there for those people who need us the most. We're not just about selling homes to people. We're there providing homes to the people who most need it, and we can certainly work with the government to help with that. And sure, the Crown Lands Act, I mean, the interpretation of that is, I don't know much to say about that one, because I've ran into situations myself with that. I know a number of other realtors have, but we need to work in conjunction with our partners with that to make sure that that's handled fairly quickly, so it won't jeopardize the sale of a property or the cost associated with that to either the buyer or the seller. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else want to weigh in on that one? No? Okay.
I'll leave that one alone.
All right, next question is to Randall, who is our president-elect, but also chair of the Education Committee. So this one is around realtor professionalism. Professionalism has been a centerpiece pillar of our strategic plan as well. And the introduction of the mandatory education program was a big part of that, right? A big reason for our mandatory education is to raise the bar on professionalism and make sure that our members are the best educated, able to serve their client licensees. So we know that the new mandatory course for the current, now the current cycle is going to be the Trading Act, and that's now in place. And we also know from feedback in our member survey that we need more material. Our members are looking for more courses, more relevant, more up-to-date. So where do you see opportunities to build on the current program and the types of courses we have?
Well, thanks, Bill. Well, first, before I get to the answer, during my presentation earlier, I made a big mistake in forgetting to thank the people that are involved with the education program. So first and foremost, Dan Gulliver, our Director of Education with the association. Dan provides all of the information for us as a committee when we're working, for us as members when we're sharing it with you, our other members. So thanks very much, Dan. And also to our education committee members. And, we are all looking at bettering the program moving forward. Where do I see the opportunities to build on the education program? Well, I think, first of all, in order to know where we're headed and where we want our program to be headed, is we need to first look at where we've been. And, first and foremost, the education program, the professional development program, has been put in place to help realtors be better realtors. And first of all, if you want to look at your career as a realtor, we all kind of see how we line up with other professions. And I think having a successful profession means that you need respect from the public, and in order to do that, you need to be well educated. I think our professional development program is able to put our realtors at the same level, bring everybody up to a higher standard. We started this from grassroots. Neil was the very first chair of the education committee, and kudos for Neil and his direction. And I think we've brought it to where we're to now, and not without some growing pains. I'd like to point out that in our first cycle, we had a renewal date that fell with the end of a calendar year, end of a fiscal year, and then also during the Christmas holiday season. And that was not such a great idea. And we, certainly found out that when we came live again and in January of the next year, we had some bugs to work out. So we immediately reacted to that. And then in our second term, instead of ending at December 31st, we pushed it to March 31st of 2021. This allowed both Dan and the NLAR staff to be able to address any concerns with members that were trying to be compliant. But also it kind of got away from that holiday season and then just before the start of the spring season, when we know all your agents are getting, you as agents are getting ramped up for the upcoming year, you kind of have this put behind you and then you can move forward. So I just wanted to kind of touch on those things from where we've been. As to where we're headed, well, I think in my education presentation earlier, I was mentioning some courses that we have in the works or we'd like to have in the works, and I have some other ones that certainly would be good topics to look at. Maybe tax tips for realtors. I know everybody hates having to deal with CRA. Wondering if there's things that you've all of the available deductions have been used, or things that you can claim and not claim. So I think that would be a great course. The Condo Act. Now we have very few condominiums on the West Coast. Certainly we have maybe a dozen or so condominium buildings, but certainly in this area on the East Coast, it's very prevalent. So that would be a great course for members. I know a lot of times I've dealt with condos myself, and I've had other agents that have reached out and asked me, well, how do you deal with this? And when you're dealing with the condo corporation and documentation and things that are needed, things that you have to put in your offer, or things that you need to provide your customer. So I think that would be a great one. Agency fundamentals is always a good topic, and we could certainly work on forming a course with regards to agency fundamentals. And so many times agents are not sure whether you're a seller's agent or a buyer's agent or a dual agent, and that would be great. Errors and omissions and risk management, I mentioned that one earlier as well. Certainly risk management. More and more as we move forward with technology and online, and we're dealing with documentation that we're sending between parties, and we want to make sure that that data is secure, and knowing what risks are involved and how they can be mediated, I think is great. And certainly we've been working towards that in the coming year for some risk management. And also the topics that I did mention during my report. I mean, any one of those would be great topics. So I guess to kind of sum it up, we have a lot of growing pains. The education program would be still considered to be in its infancy, but with direction from the members and good leadership from the executive and the board members, and certainly good contributions from our committee members, I think we can bring everyone's level of professionalism up another notch, and that's what we need to do to be more professional.
Okay.
I think you've done a wonderful job, and the board of directors should be really proud of what we've accomplished, or you have accomplished, because no longer we, I'm sorry, but I was part of that for a while. But I think you should be really proud of what you've done. It brings real estate in Newfoundland a lot more professional than what it has been without education, and everybody being on the same page and working towards the same goals. I would also like to bring up that a course that we might like to think about, and it was just as you were speaking, I was thinking about is health and well-being, and mental health and well-being for sure with the COVID situation, but not only during that. Realtors go through a lot of stress every day. There's things that they have to cope with on a personal level, on a professional level, and everything else in between, because not only are you looking after yourself, you're your client's counselor as well. You have to listen to their situations, you have to mentor those, you have to look at, just keep them healthy as well. But we need to first look after ourselves and be healthy ourselves in order to do that. So a course on health and well-being, Mental health and well-being might be a really good, I know it's part of our employee plan or
Yeah.
what we have there, but I think that would be a wonderful course for our members.
Yeah, and I know there's lots of our members who practice mindfulness and other mental health tools and programs. Absolutely could be something that we offer, and again, a great opportunity to talk about our member and family assistance program. Again, people associate EAPs with mental health or crisis situations, and absolutely there's some tools there to deal with that, but there's also a lot of other kinds of things. If you need help trying to figure out how to deal with a rotational worker or spouse kind of situation, they've got advice and guidance on that. If you've got aging parents you're trying to figure out long-term plans for, they've got counselors that can provide some input and some advice on that. There's legal advice, there's financial advice. Again, I would encourage any of our members who are dealing with anything that's putting stress or that kind of if you're dealing with those kinds of situations, make use of our family plan, our member and family assistance plan through Homewood Health. It's a great tool. Moving along, I'm going to ask this one to Ron. Ron is the chair of our technology committee, in addition to being treasurer. So we've set technology and data stewardship as a key pillar in our plan that we created a couple of years ago. And certainly, we have seen the advancement of all kinds of technology companies in the real estate space. There are billions of dollars a year being invested in real estate property technology companies. A recent REM magazine article highlighted the potential threat of the Canadian banks getting into real estate through technology. We introduced showing time, and we've been through that. But that when they were acquired, that sent ripples through the industry. There's a tsunami of technology that's coming at us, and Cliff, this may be one you want to jump in on as well. Realtor.ca has introduced some new tools for lead generation. Cliff talked about that, tools for customer relation management and that sort of thing. So the pace of tech change is impossible to keep up with. Mm-hmm. And we hear from our members all the time, I'm an old-fashioned real estate agent. I want to be belly to belly with my client. I want to get to know the agent on the other side, but yet all of this technology is coming at us. What do you say to members who are concerned about the introduction of new technology and it replacing the human touch and the seemingly endless move of our industry online? What do you say? And Cliff, again, if you want to jump in.
Yeah, great question, Bill. Thank you for that. And Cliff, by all means, if you want to jump in and piggyback off any of my points, feel free. So, I think the first thing I would say is to our members that they're not alone. I think the technology and the evolution and the speed of the evolution of technology in our industry happens very quickly, and I think it can be intimidating for a lot of us. But I think the key is to, real estate is always a local business, right? It's driven by realtors and your local influence and your local expertise in your community. And I don't think technology can ever change that. So, as long as we continue to work on to strengthen our relationships with our clients, I think we're going to be okay, and technology becomes a tool to help us do our job better. But the reality is we need to be where the consumers are, and they're online, and never has that been more evident than during a pandemic. And in most cases, it's right in the palm of their hand. They're on the app. They want stuff instantly. They want, all the data. They want the information. They don't want to have to reach out anymore and call a realtor or meet the realtor face-to-face to get information on a listing or get market data or even sign a contract in a lot of cases. So, I think as long as we adapt with that, and it's more important now than ever for us to be the local real estate expert and not just a provider of information.
Yeah, virtual tours are becoming like the norm
Absolutely.
Right now.
We need to be there. And, I think, as new technology comes into our business, it brings new risks with it. And part of the role of NLAR is to help evaluate and manage those risks for our members. And, we talked about data stewardship and things like that and showing time. And, of course, we have very strict data protection agreements in place with companies like Showing Time that, and there's hundreds of other MLS operators throughout North America that have these agreements. So that prevents them from sharing our data with anyone, including their parent company. You know, and you touched on Realtor.ca. Cliff, that was great. I learned a lot of new things there in terms of the Realtor version of the app and the statistics. I think that's fantastic. Obviously, technology is very high on the radar for CREA, which it has to be. And Realtor.ca continues to be the #1 website, you know, mentioned in terms of market share for consumers and their home searching process. And one of the big advantages we have in Canada, and we've been fortunate to have this advantage for a long time, is that we have one central national MLS website for consumer traffic, right? We're very fortunate to have that. So, you know, I think the last thing I would say is as we continue to adapt and adopt new technology in our business, we need our members to keep reaching out to us. If they have concerns or questions, or if they need support or training, that's what we're here for. At the end of the day, the board and the association are here to serve and support our members when it comes to technology and other things, of course, as well.
Yeah. Cliff, anything to add to that?
I would love to jump in if that's okay.
Go right ahead.
Got a bit of an echo. I don't know if it's coming across. Okay, so yeah, by the way, I loved everything we just said. Like, that was a phenomenal response, especially the piece about, you know, all real estate being local and the important role we play with consumers. I'm going to piggyback off of actually, this may sound familiar to Bill and some of your board members. So first of all, being aware of what the disruption is for our industry is hugely important. For the longest time, the disruption for our industry was consumer eyeballs on portals, and we're all aware of the big third-party companies that have come up from the States that are trying to take consumer eyeballs and then take that information and our data and essentially sell it back to us in the form of leads. And that was disruption in our industry for the longest period of time, and that's really shifted. And I think everybody needs to understand this isn't a gloom and doom commentary. This is actually probably to speak more to opportunities we have. But disruption has really shifted to third-party for-profit companies, to Bill's point, backed by billions, trying to remove realtors from either one side or both sides of the transaction. They really are truly trying to automate part of the process here. And that's not meant to be some kind of fear tactic or scare tactic for membership. It shouldn't be anyway. It's something that we need to understand is what the consumers are being presented with as an option. And then we need to pivot and adjust. And we need to do this together because, as I've said previously, we're not a board of 5,000 people. We're not a board of 300 people. We're 136,000 members across the country. We are a strong industry, and we all need to work together on this. But to piggyback on some of the comments that were just made, understanding what the consumer wants here is critical. And I mentioned that earlier in what I said. They're going to go find this information somewhere. They absolutely are. And making sure that we present it. So I'll give you another example, and I don't think it's been rolled out across the country. There's still pilot programs happening, but there's another data layer we're playing with right now with Realtor.ca called the total cost of living. And if you've seen this, forgive me and just humor me. But this is a granular level, property-specific piece of information, a data set on top of a listing to show a consumer the true cost of living to own this home. And that's taxes and utilities for the area. I mean, like really specific data layers for a consumer to make a decision on whether they want to see the property or not. And we're partnering with third-party companies because here's the part that has absolutely shifted for our industry and needed to shift for our industry. It's to partner with and work with the subject matter experts in their fields. We can't be all things to everybody. We can have a massive tech component at CREA, but when you're fighting billions with millions, we cannot do this alone. So I think the big shift to bring in outside companies, to partner with them, to add more information to Realtor.ca was a shift, and it was a fantastic shift. And consumers really are engaging with this data that we're providing. So yes, data is key, data is king. You've heard that before. That's the digital currency I think everybody's paying attention to, understanding what the threats truly are. And then, not losing sight of the fact that, real estate is local. We have a role to play with consumers. We are their trusted advisors. And regardless of what they're trying to do for, the disintermediation of our industry, it's important to understand that that's our role.
Just to add to that too, and I'm not sure if I've got to use this microphone or not, so I'll go with both. But, you talked about the data, and that's one thing, but the consumers have told us time and time again that they still want that trusted real estate expert to help interpret that data, navigate the process of whether it be home buying or home selling, or handle all the logistics of the transaction, right? So the data being one piece of it, but it's the service really that comes down to where our value really contributes to the data, right?
And you still need a realtor to hold the camera and walk through the house for people to buy the property.
I couldn't agree with you more, and I'll add on to this by giving you a really clear example. We have a third-party company in my marketplace that is trying to connect buyer and seller on a digital platform and completely cut out realtors. Now, are they gaining some traction in the consumers that are initially engaging with them? Yes, but here's the part that I have to say, and I'll share this with you guys. The people that are engaging on this platform or engaging with this company to start off with are so unbelievably confused. They have no idea what they're doing. And it puts the listing realtor, if they're working at the buyer end of the platform, in a really difficult position, because obviously you're having to work with this consumer and almost coach them through the process to the benefit of your client. And it's a very, very difficult position from an agency perspective. And everybody understands that. But the proof is in the pudding. Regardless of what they're trying to do to automate our process, back to your point about being the trusted advisor, these people are confused. They just don't understand what they're getting themselves into, and that's where we come in.
Yeah, I read just yesterday on an article online that there's the big company that we talk about, and especially in the U.S., they have a program that estimates the value of houses, and due to the how busy the market has been lately, now that program is creating all kinds of inaccurate data, right? Because it just can't keep up with the market. It doesn't understand what's driving the market to the level that we can as the professionals.
Okay. Thanks, Cliff. Going back to Ron, in your role as treasurer. So NLAR, as we heard, is in a very healthy financial position, but a year ago, we weren't so sure. And not that we were concerned immediately. We knew we had the reserves to carry through the pandemic, but if the pandemic had put us and our membership into a spiral downward as opposed to a spiral upward, as it turned out, who would have thunk it? We had some tough choices to make and some tough decisions to have. But like millions of other businesses in Canada, we took advantage of some of the assistance programs through the federal government. We were able to, support our members through some discounts and waived fees and that sort of thing. But what do you see as priorities in the next couple of years around sustainability, viability, future of us as an association, the business operation of NLAR?
Yeah, so I mean, we did have some concern a year ago. Who would have thought we would be where we are today? And a part of our work plan for this year, and Mark touched on this in his finance report, is that we've budgeted for a risk review. We've also budgeted to create a risk mitigation strategy, and we're going to do an operational review of the association. So I think through investing in some tools like that, as well as taking advantage of what we've learned through experience in the last year dealing with the pandemic, I think we'll be well positioned, hopefully in the future, to be able to handle similar risks that we may face. The last couple of years, especially, we've had to take a real hard line on some expenses as our membership has dropped by, probably 40 or 50 members in the last 5 years. That's the number one driver of our revenue, is the member fees. So as that revenue has decreased, we've had to make sure we can offset expenses accordingly, so that we maintain a healthy balance there and able to have our books balanced at the end of the year. And keep in mind, as a not-for-profit, our guide or our goal every year essentially is to break even, right, or pretty close to it. So one thing I think that we did highlight and indicate in the last year that we really need to focus on is our reserve fund, which again, Mark touched on that as well. So best practices for nonprofits in Canada would suggest that an association like ours may want to have 6 months of operating 6 months of operating expenses in our reserve at all times. And I believe for our association, that's probably somewhere to the tune of $750,000 or so. And for many years now, we've been operating with about $60,000 in our reserve fund, which was, extremely low. So we've got to do something about that, I think, to help mitigate risk in the future if we were to, fall on hard times and maybe we didn't have assistance there to be able to avail of. So, fortunately, I guess if we look back through the last year in the pandemic, we have been able to really cut some operational expenses as an association. We combine that with, a real spike in pre-licensing revenue, which we didn't really expect we would see this time last year, but here we are. So you combine those two things, and we've been fortunate now to be able to increase, again, Mark mentioned this, increase our reserve fund in the last year from $60,000 up to $150,000. So, I think we're definitely on the right track. We've got some work to do, but I think we've come out of this, or we're not out of it yet, but we're probably going to come out of this pandemic in a better position than we went in. And if we continue on this track, we're in a good place, I think.
Okay, good. All right, our last question is around member well-being, which is the sixth pillar of our plan, our strategic plan. And I'm going to ask Neil this. So Neil, last question to you is on member well-being. And certainly, when we sat around in 2019 and we talked about adding member well-being and member safety and security to our strategic plan, we certainly wasn't within the context of what we've been through in the last year. But it does highlight the need, right? So member well-being, includes issues, Kimberly raised mental health, but there's also security, member security, physical security, but also, data protection and we're entrusted, Mark talked about going to individual billing and having your credit card in our system. So it's not in our system, it's in a secure third-party payments processor, but, that kind of security comes into this as well. So we were already talking about these things before the pandemic, and we brought in the member and family assistance program. What else do you see as being important in this member well-being, member security kind of area that you'd like to see us move on?
Well, I think it's important for the members to understand, what member well-being is all about. As an association, we recognize that, real estate in its own right is not a stable environment for everybody. There are stresses that you have to incur almost on a daily basis. As Kimberly said earlier, like we're the stewards for our clients. Sometimes we're marriage counselors, sometimes you're financial advisors, sometimes you're just there to hold their hand to make sure that they're comfortable in how they do things. Not everybody is wired the same, and not everybody can accept the responsibilities that go with that the same. So as Bill indicated, in 2019 we felt it was an important enough topic that it would be a pillar of our strategic plan. And at the time it was more around safety of our realtors. Is it safe to book appointments? Are we being lured into dangerous situations? So from that angle, it was important. Financial security obviously is important. As the graph showed, real estate sales up and down throughout the year. There's no smooth income coming in on a monthly basis. So the stresses that go with the financial side. And then obviously the mental piece is becoming a bigger piece in recent years. The pandemic probably highlighted that more than ever. So the member and family assistance program that we've engaged in certainly provides services well above and beyond just as was indicated, the mental and the crisis issue. There's legal services available, financial services available. So there's a suite of products that are available to our members through that program. But we also need to make sure we continue to engage. And our engagement in our last member survey indicated that, our members were pleased with how we responded to the pandemic, how we helped make sure that there was financial security there, how we piggybacked with CREA on the advocacy piece so that, the federal programs were available to us as members. These are all important, and obviously moving forward, we need to make sure that we have that type of stability for our membership. There are some new things coming online within our Real Estate Trading Act that are probably going to cause some more stresses that we need to make sure we provide supports for. So, it's not implemented yet, but at some point in time, as individual realtors, we'll be able to incorporate. What does that mean for a realtor? Is it in their best interest to incorporate? Should status quo be the case? That type of interaction for our members is very critical. And the list goes on. As you go through your daily life, you see so many examples of where the pressures and the strains of being a realtor come to the forefront, and not everybody handles it the same. And I think even if you were to just go around the board of directors, and we've had this conversation internally, like, you know, again, we're not all wired exact the same, and some people can be in an environment like this and it's comfortable, others aren't comfortable in that way. As a board member, reaching out to volunteer and put yourself as an exposed person to all the membership, sometimes that brings its own stresses. So we have to make sure that not only the general membership, but also the board of directors and the hierarchy are looked after as well. So member well-being, very big topic, lots of different platforms where we need to make sure we interact with members. But certainly the pandemic has highlighted that, and as a pillar of our strategic plan, we will continue to make that a priority moving forward.
Okay. Anybody else want to add to that, or no? Well, that's the end of my prepared questions. We've had a couple from the audience. I don't think there's anything else in the queue. I'm looking over at Ed. There's nothing else in the queue from the audience that we can answer?
Not that we can answer. I've asked for emails.
Okay, so there's a couple of people who have got questions in that we're going to get back to, because they're specific questions. We're going to get email addresses and get back to you. Any final thoughts before we adjourn for any of our panelists, or from Mr. Stevenson, not Iverson, in Calgary?
Well, before I say any final words, I'd like to extend the opportunity to our CREA chair.
Just thank you. Just a real quick comment. I have had the privilege and pleasure of being involved in a lot of AGMs for a lot of boards across the country. Kudos to you guys for this. This is brilliant. You guys have done a fantastic job here. And I also I'm looking at your attendance, your participants list. That's fantastic that you guys have this kind of turnout for your AGM too. This is, by the way, not super common with boards and associations. So kudos to all of you. The Fireside Chat at the end, brilliant. Well done. Thank you for having me.
And thank you, sir. And thank you to all the members who did participate in our AGM this morning. Obviously, the panelists, board of directors, staff at the board office, all play a major key role in making sure that your association is well run. I did say earlier that our focus is always on the betterment of our membership and making sure that we give you the services and the tools that you need to prosper in the industry. That won't change. Our focus is what it is, and we certainly encourage interaction. This whole piece this morning was meant to do that. As Bill said, there are some questions coming in, but by all means, the more we interact, the better we are all. We are all off. It's great that we do have interaction, but I would always encourage more. We can't know what you want unless you tell us what you want. You know, we can guess and we can kind of put strategic plans in place and try to hit the right spots, but the more interaction we have with our membership, the better off we will all be. So please continue to do so, and if you haven't, by all means, reach out to any of us who are board members or staff members. Great group of people here with your best interest at heart. So thank you again for showing up. Thanks to Cliff, and certainly Kimberly. I was glad to have you back again around the table. We look forward to our next year, and hopefully we get out of this pandemic. So stay safe, and we'll see you soon.